The One Micronesia Podcast is brought to you by Docomo Pacific. Better together.
Hafide, Mogisin, and Castellelier, and welcome to another episode of the One Micronesia Podcast. Now, in this episode, I was like, you know what? I got to reach out to her because she's doing an amazing thing. I thought she was doing one or two amazing things in Hawaii, but no, to find out later on in an interview that we had before this interview, she does way more than just one. She does a lot. And we're going to talk about the different things that she does. And I was like, you know what? Perfect. Because I have 4 sections in my interview. And we're going to definitely fill up each section with the different things that you do. We're going to try because you do so much for the community out there in Hawaii, especially the Kofa community out there in Hawaii. And we have to talk about it because we have to highlight the amazing things that you do. I mean, and I know you talked about so many other of your friends who are from the FSM or Kofa states that are doing amazing things as well. And, you know, I'm going to get to them. Don't worry. I'm taking this one by one, episode by episode. But this episode is for you. So, ladies and gentlemen, with me on the podcast today, from the beautiful island of Pohnpeian, I do have with me the Serapane herself, Carolann Carl, who is a biochemist, a storyteller, a poet, and a healer. Yes, all of that. So, Carolann, I'm so sorry about the big intro, but you do deserve a big intro. So, Carolann, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Castellelia, I just want to emphasize that I don't represent myself. I represent an entire community that does the work. And I'm just one piece of many that do all of the things that you just described. And I really appreciate this opportunity.
Awesome. And, you know, let's start there. Tell us more about you.
Home for me is the beautiful island of Pohnpeian in the Federated States of Micronesia. I currently work and live in Kalihi, one of probably the last working class communities in urban Honolulu on the island of Oahu, in the Kingdom of Hawaii. I work at Kukua Kalihi Valley Comprehensive Family Services as a grant writer. I graduated from UH Manoa with my Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry. And inside and outside of work, my community work revolves around Micronesian youth and Micronesian women. But my avenue into this work was mental health in Micronesian men in low-income communities.
You mentioned something that kind of got me, and I think that people should know. So talk about the story of how you discovered your love for the island of Pohnpeian.
My journey begins with my parents. They were attending school in Hawaii when they got pregnant with me. And unlike other Kofa migrants, my parents decided to fly back to Pohnpeian to actually give birth to me. So from birth, they guaranteed that I knew exactly where I was from, right? And then before I turned 2 years old, we came back to Hawaii. And so I have always grown up back and forth between Pohnpeian and Hawaii. I'm 26. Of those years, I've spent 17 in Hawaii and the other 9 in Pohnpeian. But I've only lived in Pohnpeian like consecutively for 7 or 8 years. And so because of that, when we had moved back to Pohnpeian when I was about 11 or 12 in 2007, I was always known as like the girl from Hawaii. And when people would ask me, I would say I was from Hawaii because, you know, my childhood being rooted in Hawaii, for me, I couldn't claim Pohnpeian because I didn't know what Pohnpeian was, right? I would go there for like summers and Christmases, and I could kind of speak the language. Now I'm a lot more fluent because of the time that I lived there, but I had more stories in Hawaii than I did in Pohnpeian. And my dad was a conservationist at the time. And I don't know if you've ever hung out with conservationists, but they are some of the most passionate people when it comes to the communities and the places that they work in. So I think it was really troubling for my dad that his daughter was telling everyone that she was from Hawaii. And so he put me on a path with a lot of mentors who were all conservationists, and who were all really passionate about Pohnpei. And one of the main ones was Bill Rayner, actually. Whenever they would go to the ruins or the sites like Nanmantol or the waterfalls or the petroglyphs, they always told the stories. It would always be the origin stories of like what happened here during the Storyteller dynasty, or what stories were connected to these specific pieces of land and how that made these spaces sacred. So for me, being able to spend time in these places while hearing the stories about those places, I was able to learn the beauty of Pohnpei, right? The beauty of the land and the ocean. And then from there, I could begin to see myself as an extension of that beauty and as a Pohnpeian, which is really significant for a Kofa migrant who spent a lot of her life in Hawaii.
It was such an amazing story for me to hear. I heard of that part of it, and I think to me that's where, when you talk about an origin story, that was your origin story of how you found love for Pohnpei and your roots, and that kind of moved you forward to to the things that you're doing now. So that's beautiful. And when we come, we're gonna take a break, Carolann, but when we come back, we're gonna get into the work that you do, because your origin story is the reason why you're doing the things that you're doing now. So we're going to talk about what you do out there in Hawaii. All that's coming up in just a little bit. We're going to take a break, guys. It's the One Micronesia Podcast. It's being brought to you by Docomo Pacific. It's better together.
It only gets better with more. Customize and save with the fastest internet speeds in the Marianas by adding mobile, phone, and TV to your bundle with Business Bundles Plus. Docomo Pacific Business. Work better together.
For the different beats of your life, we're here to keep you connected the way you want it. Plans made for you, by you. Build your own bundle with Link. Select the internet, entertainment, mobile, and home phone plans that fit your lifestyle. Pay for what you want, not for what you don't. Build your own bundle and save with Link.
Hafere, Mogisin, and Carolann, and welcome back to the One Micronesia Podcast. Man, what a story. Carolann, her origin story, how she fell in love with Pohnpei and her roots. And this is where things get interesting, because she took all of that and she studied, she graduated, and then she went on to do things, do amazing things for the community, especially for Kofa youth. So, Carolann, tell us more about what you do.
So in 2017, I started to go back into community work while I was still studying at UH Manoa. And the first youth program that I actually started working with, or that I was actually a fellow in, was K-Vibe, the Kalihi Valley Instructional Bike Exchange. And in this transformative space that is in Kalihi, we do what's called popular education, with emphasis on place-based identity and liberation pedagogy, using stories and experiences to reconnect youth, both to their identities as immigrants, but also to their identities as people who now call Hawaii and Kalihi home. And so through that work, I've been able to witness the social biographies of so many great young Micronesians. Social biography in this program is what we define as the social context of my life and my life as a transformer of the social context. So understanding who you are, where you are, socioeconomic status, all of these different ranges and multiplicities of identities, and then rooting that to place with a huge emphasis on cultural identity. And then from there, now now in the work that I do with youth and with women and in my writing, I incorporate a lot of the things that were developed in that program. And I still work with that program when I can. Obviously, I love the program so much. Now I work as a grant writer for KKV, and I'm back here.
So let's talk about little programs that you guys have, maybe one or two.
A lot of the programming that happens at KKV, whether it's in our youth services, medical, or any of the other programs we have, we always start off with an aloha circle or a culture circle. And in these circles, it's basically just a check-in to always root ourselves right before we go about our days or our programming. And we always bring 3 names: name, home, ancestor. So when I had started off in this program, a lot of the times, my being one of the first college students to be a part of this program, and then to be a Micronesian woman also in this program, it was really interesting to begin to dive into the privileges I had compared to these kids who have grown up in Kalihi. And I had no hesitation always naming Pohnpeian as home, right? I will tell everyone that home for me is the beautiful island of Pohnpeian in the Federated States of Micronesia. But that's because at this point, I've known Pohnpeian. For a lot of these youth, whenever they name home, it's usually Kalihi. And so there was this one event that I had invited some of my UH friends to, and it was a movie night. And we did our circle. And that night, my mentor decided to start the circle with us, the college students. And my friends are from Chuk, Palau, all of these different regions in Micronesia. And so as the circle began, it was a lot of Carolann, home for me is Pohnpeian, or Ali, home for me is Palau. And for the first time in the months that I had been with the program, when it got to the young boys, I heard them actually name parts of Micronesia as home, whether that was home for me is Chuk or a specific part of Chuk, home for me is Palau, the likes. And that was so transformative for me, because in that moment, like, I saw firsthand that if they saw representation and they felt and they heard people proudly name home as places in Micronesia, then they didn't hesitate to do that as well.
So amazing job to you and to the organization for keeping up with the youth and really giving them back their identity. And I think for the longest time, I think that's what Hawaii has been missing, is COFA citizens denying their identity just so they can fit in and not get scrutinized or hated. And I think what you guys are doing is giving back that identity to the youth. Say, hey, It's okay to be from Chuk. It's okay to be from Yap. And you guys, like I said, are this generation are moving this generation towards a new beginning. And I think that is what we need for all of Micronesia. So thank you. We're going to take a break and we'll be back. You're watching the One Micronesia Podcast. It's being brought to you by Docomo Pacific. It's better together.
It only gets better with more. Customize and save with the fastest internet speeds in the Marianas by adding mobile, phone, and TV to your bundle with Business Bundles Plus. Docomo Pacific Business. Work better together.
For the different beats of your life, we're here to keep you connected the way you want it. Plans made for you, by you. Build your own bundle with Link. Select the internet, entertainment, mobile, and home phone plans that fit your lifestyle. Pay for what you want, not for what you don't. Build your own bundle and save with Link.
Hafide, Mogisin, and Casalia. We're back here with Carolann, and wow, what a story! All right, let's keep this going because, like I said, this is a part that really kind of highlights all her work, and it's taking all her work and it's showcasing it to everybody. It's to pretty much say like, hey, this is an amazing woman who is doing so much for her community and for everybody else who is living in Hawaii. So, ladies and gentlemen, Carolann, Lady Pacifica is putting you on their cover. What was it like getting the call?
So when Talua, the creator and the beautiful mind behind what is Lady Pacifica, when she had reached out to me, first she had said that she wanted to feature me in Lady Pacifica. And I was so shocked. Never in my wildest dreams did I think I would be in a magazine. Not even in the peripheries of my dreams did I think that this was a possibility. Like, it just didn't exist there. And then she told me that after I had accepted, then she told me that she actually wanted to feature me as their cover girl. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, not even ever. And I think one of the big things that contributed to it was growing up, I was never a magazine person, right? Mm-hmm. Just like growing up, I wasn't a poetry person per se. And then before this had happened, one of my mentors, Dr. Mary Therese Perez Hattori, had given me a copy, the most recent copy of Lady Pacifica, as a gift. And I had it for a couple of months before I finally decided to like go through it. Because once again, I wasn't really a magazine reading type of person. And then I did read it. And I fell in love with it so much. It dawned on me that it wasn't that I wasn't a magazine person. It's just that I'd never seen myself in magazines. So to be able to go through those stories and see the people in it, and just like our youth, see that type of representation. And then it dawned on me that probably a lot of things I grew up thinking I didn't like was just because I didn't see myself in it. So this new journey and this feature in Lady Pacifica is something that I could never even imagine, and I'm so grateful for the opportunity.
What does this mean to you? Our warrior cover girl shares her perspectives on the post-colonial world through her eyes as a post-colonial Pohnpeian girl.
That line actually comes from my blog, Korwar. It's the tagline when you go onto the blog. And that blog I started in 2018. Started blogging about the origin stories, but understanding the sacredness behind origin stories, the purpose behind Kawarwar wasn't just to share stories, right? Because traditionally, you don't just share stories. Stories are earned. The ways that we exchange knowledge are not extractive, and no one can ask for stories. You have to spend time with people so that these stories can be shared. So Kawarwar was my way of taking that practice of origin stories and using it as an application or a lens to see the world through. So the stories I share on there are usually incomplete, and a lot of the details aren't always completely there, which is rooted in methodologies of Pohnpeian storytelling. But the stories describe or try to describe ways that we can use those interpretations of history to kind of navigate our present and navigate our future responsibly, honoring our histories and our stories and our identities as a community in this world that's so fast-paced that we're on the verge of being left behind.
Wow, that's beautiful. Guys, we're going to take a break. But when we come back, it's the last part. We're pretty much going to close out here with Carolann. We'll be back. It's the One Micronesia Podcast brought to you by Docomo Pacific. It's better together.
It only gets better with more. Customize and save with the fastest internet speeds in the Marianas by adding mobile, phone, and TV to your bundle with Business Bundles Plus. Docomo Pacific Business. Work better together.
For the different beats of your life, we're here to keep you connected the way you want it. Plans made for you, by you. Build your own bundle with Link. Select the internet, entertainment, mobile, and home phone plans that fit your lifestyle. Pay for what you want, not for what you don't. Build your own bundle and save with Link.
Hafaday, Moisin, and Casalillier. And we're back with the last part here with Carolann. Now, before we get to the messages and the social media, so that way you guys can follow her amazing journey, the ultimate goal for Carolann, and I think I've never asked anybody this, but for you and seeing what you have done through your journey, I think it's told me that it kind of given me an idea that you have an ultimate goal. You're working towards something, and of course we all have that, right? But what is Carolann's ultimate goal?
My ultimate goal is to create or curate a learning space, whether that's a clinic like KKB or an actual school in Pohnpeian, but one that centers Indigenous knowledge and uses Pohnpeian origin stories as a method of learning and as the backbone to a curriculum to really raise new generations of brilliant minds rooted in Pohnpeian.
Carolann, message to your family, your friends, and your supporters.
So this poem I dedicate to, let me try that again without the sound of the chair creaking. This poem is called Aikel, or If I Have Courage. And it's dedicated to the Micronesian community. Whether you're back home or in the diaspora, actually, to be honest, it's to Pacifica and to everything that it encompasses. It pays homage to the elders in my life, or the people that have come before me, whose work and whose community work has really laid the path for what I've done today. Echoes of Oceania blend into my essence, the ocean shaping the island that is me. Can you feel the magma that is my ancestors, candescent, folding, molding, lifting, birthing me out of the sea? If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants. People who sweat and cry, salt water in defiance, moving with utmost intention. We were never drifters, we are navigators. If I have courage, it is because I have faith in the knowledge of my ancestors. Anthems of women shaking foreign ground, speaking, singing, chanting with breath that vibrates from powerful ancient sounds. Silent warriors, wind blowers of languages, songs, and chants that drum to the beating of island waves, whose written words make me proud of my Uros and Pohnpeian. If I have courage, it is because I have faith in our elders. If I have courage, it is because I have faith in our youth. If I have courage, it is because I have faith in our brothers and sisters. If I have courage, it is because I stand on the lava flow of shoulders that is all of you. Carolann.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, Carolann, who is all the way out in Hawaii, but also represents Micronesia. He takes it with her every single day. And Carol, thank you so much. Before we go, if you want, where can people follow your journey?
My Instagram is probably the best place to do it. It's at Carolann or Carolann, the Pohnpeian pronunciation of my name. Or you could also follow my blog, kawarwar.wordpress.com.
All right, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. She's a biochemist, she's a storyteller, she's a poet, she's a healer, she's a grant writer, she's everything. All right, thank you so much, Carolann, for the time that you've given us on the podcast today. It was such an amazing time to learn about your story, and I hope the people watching right now do know what you've been through and what's made you who you are today, and how you're giving back to the community, especially our Kofa youth out there in Hawaii who need a role model. And you and many others out there in Hawaii are doing just that and giving them, like I said, we talked about this, giving them a star to look at, a star to lead them to find their identity, a star to lead them to finding their roots. And you guys are just that. So Carolann, you and everybody out there in Hawaii who are doing just what you're doing to helping our community, thank you so much. And that pretty much concludes another episode of the One Micronesia Podcast. My name is Victorious, and I will see you on the next one.
The One Micronesia Podcast is brought to you by Docomo Pacific. Better together.